What's going on, guys? Aaron from Top Tier Gaming here, and today I'm going to be doing a deck profile for Edison format, actually. Edison format's not something I actually do a lot of on my channel. I don't know how much of it I actually want to upload, but I do want to do this deck profile because this deck right here is a fan favorite, I think, for a lot of people in this format. And it's definitely a personal favorite of mine. If you don't know what Edison format is and you happen to click on this video, Edison format is a sort of like recreation format similar to GOAT format of a period of time in which Shonen Jump Edison was happening. It's a great format, and this is one of the decks that, you know, made me get into Edison a little more because this deck is like my baby. For those of you who don't know, I have like previous channels from way back in the day, and Frog Monarchs was like my deck. Like, I had a series called Frogology. I uploaded consistent Frog Monarch videos for like 3 years. I played the deck non-stop for 3 years. I mean, like, I had people, when they saw me at events, they would have me sign their swap frogs. Like, Frog Monarchs is like my baby. What's very funny is this mat that I am choosing to do the profile on today is actually my first regional top mat that I got with Frog Monarchs back in 2012. And yeah, this deck holds a special place in my heart, and of course this version is a little different than the version I got the top with and the one I'm used to playing, but this is my favorite deck in Edison format, pretty much my favorite deck of all time. Frog Monarch has a special place in my heart, and I'm super excited to do this deck profile because I absolutely love this deck. And yeah, before we get into the profile, Discord link down below if you do want to, you know, sort of hang out in our Discord. We're going a Yu-Gi-Oh community there, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun. So if that sounds interesting, link down below. And without further ado, let's get into this Frog Monarch deck profile. Alright, this feels really nostalgic. I haven't done a Frog Monarch profile probably since 2014, so this is going to be wild, but I absolutely love these cards. So let's get into it. We're going to start with our tribute monsters. We're going to start off with the 3 Caius. Very, very standard, just arguably the best Monarch in the format, although I feel like the more I played the deck back in the day, Ryza was actually the Monarch I felt was the best. It just depended on the format, but Ryza has some really cool plays with Swap Frog, and like the Ryza lock was a big thing back in the day in like slower games or grind games. These are your 6 actual Monarch cards that, you know, is what the deck's based around, you know, Frog Monarch. They're just like summons for free because of Treeborn Frog, and they're +1s, and advantage is very important in this format, as well as tempo, and Monarchs can kind of help you get to both. I mean, they're very powerful, just +1s that you just summon, and they're going to put pressure on, and they're going to out threats, and it put Frog Monarch in a place where they could out almost any threat in the game because there weren't like so many anti-target effects, but things that like couldn't be destroyed had existed for a while. Things like Stardust were huge this format, and both Ryza and Caius can out it instantly, so very, very, very powerful cards. These things can out things like Armor Master, Stardust. The Monarchs were always just powerhouses, and they were powerhouses in Yu-Gi-Oh for a very long time. So we're just maximizing 3 Caius and 3 Ryza. Next, what I believe to be the most powerful card in the deck is Light and Darkness Dragon. So I've seen some other Edison lists like cut this down to 1 or not play it, which is so blasphemous to me. In fact, Edison format Frog Monarch lists actually just make me so angry. So if you're unfamiliar with the format, or maybe you are familiar with the format, a very popular version of Frog Monarchs right now is like Diva Monarchs, which is like, Diva's cool if you have a Monarch already established, and you know, it's like a very win more, but by itself it's like a catastrophe usually. I absolutely hate that version of the deck and think it's complete just like garbaggio. But yeah, so Light and Darkness Dragon is, in my opinion, one of the strongest tributes that you shouldn't cut down on. In fact, I often played this at 3, and I did in my regional top list as well. But for Edison, I think 2 is fine because I have to fit different cards I didn't used to have to fit. But Light and Darkness Dragon in this format is absolutely absurd. It is usually just like a +2 or 3. Slows the game down almost instantly, and there are very few outs to this card that isn't going to result in you just having a massive swing of advantage in your favor. Like Quick Draw Synchron can sort of deal with this card in Edison format because it will infinitely negate Lad, things like Vayu. Machina Fortress is a good out to this card, but besides those, Light and Darkness Dragon is going to be claiming advantage in your favor, and he's so powerful. Especially late game when he just like, after he dies, he's a monster reborn. It's so, so good. And then probably the sackiest tribute in the deck, and something you always ran at 1, was Dark Dust Spirit. So Dark Dust Spirit is a spirit monster, which means it comes back at the end phase, which is, you know, a familiar sort of mechanic that spirits have. And every time he's normal summoned or flipped face up, he destroys all monsters on the field except himself. This is very powerful because every single turn it means you have a Raigeki that your opponent doesn't have, and it is so hard to deal with this card without like very specific trap cards like Bottomless or Fiendish Chain. And this in tandem with Battle Fader will just win you games. Like when your opponent thinks they have game and they just commit full into just swinging for game, and you drop Battle Fader and then Dark Dust Spirit, it's almost always game from there. And Dark Dust Spirit is just a very powerful card. And that is going to wrap it up for tributes. I play 9. 10 was a number I used to like a lot. In this format, I think 9 is fine because this Frog Monarch list has a card I didn't used to have, and you know, it's one of the most powerful cards in this deck by far. So yeah, just 9 tributes. You don't want to brick on them, but you do want to see them. On to the Frog package. We're going to start with the man, the myth, the legend. 3 Substitoad. So this is the card that back in the day, I actually didn't get to play with this card very often. Like the Frog Monarchs I'm used to, Swap Frog is your only like starter to a Frog. Because Substitoad got banned for obvious reasons. Frog FDK was ridiculous. Of course, we don't have Ronin Toad yet in this format, but Substitoad makes this deck off the walls bananas, okay? Like, I don't see how this deck isn't the only deck played in Edison format, because every time I play it, it is so by and far more powerful than my opponent's deck, especially game 1, than like almost anything they're playing. Substitoad is literally just a cheat code. This card has some amazing synergies with cards like Soul Exchange, which is so good. You can like Soul Exchange one of their monsters, summon Substitoad, call Priority, and tribute their monster for Toad, instantly dumping your entire deck and then getting a dupe block. Being able to turn Substitoad, essentially, if you're playing him right, into a dupe block and essentially running like a 30 card deck, you're so far ahead because every top deck you have is completely broken. It's either a Monarch or like a power spell, and Substitoad is, again, just the craziest card. Like, if you have wanted to play an Edison and maybe you want to pick up this deck, you will have the time of your life resolving Substitoad because he is actually just a cheat code on legs. It is so absurd. Like, oh my goodness, Substitoad is so powerful. And then on to the next frog, we're going to have our 3 Swap Frogs. This is just my best friend. I mean, like, this is the card you wanted to see in your opening hand in the Frog Monarchs of old, and you just had to see Swap Frog. He's the best card in your deck besides Substitoad in this list. His ability to dump Treeborn is what most people like know him for in this deck, but the real power behind this card is the fact that he's essentially like an infinite resource as long as you keep bouncing him, and the fact that he can bounce back your Monarchs, and that's very good for, you know, if you only open 1 Caius, you can turn that 1 Caius to 2 as long as you have frogs to discard for Swap Frog. What's very important with this card is recycling things like Light and Darkness Dragon, or possibly even Gorz, the Emissary of Darkness. Like, this card has so many cool things it can do. And when Gachi Gentetsu comes out, this card is insane in my opinion, but in this format, it is still something you have to maximize at 3. I mean, it's just like the second best frog. And then we have the 2 Dupe Frog for your dupe block. There's no reason like not to run this. It can be a starter and help you get to Swap Frog, but also the ability to dupe block your opponent and make them waste resources to out it is very good, and then potentially getting more frogs back for your Swap Frog plays is insanely powerful. And then, of course, the 2 Treeborn Frog, and this is just your infinite resource that is going to allow you to just always have at least a defender, bare minimum, but most of the time tribute for your Monarchs, or help you tribute for your bigger things like Light and Darkness Dragon. He is just a free tribute every single turn, which is what makes him so powerful. But we do not play 3 because once you establish 1, you don't really need more than 1. Now, past game 1, that changes a little, and we played 2 just to have, you know, the option of like main deck DD Crow. We have an out for it, things of that nature. The second Treeborn just comes up. And then on to the hand traps. This is actually one of the first decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! That is playing, you know, more hand traps than you'd expect. This deck is on more hand traps than it is trap cards, so this is like a modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck almost. But yeah, 3 Battle Fader. You pretty much don't have a board half the time. You're establishing a Monarch and, you know, it's applying pressure, but if it gets cleared, then your board is always empty. This allows you to not only protect yourself from OTKs and lots of, like, damage, but it also puts a tribute monster, like a monster to tribute on the field, I should say. Very important because, again, you're running Monarch, so if you don't have access to Treeborn, this can save you from some damage, and then you can tribute for your Monarch anyway. So, yes, very powerful card that we're going to maximize at 3. It is, again, just like a card only Frog Monarchs really playing. Like, Quick Draw sometimes back in the day played 1, but yeah, it's almost a Frog Monarch exclusive, and it's very powerful. And then we're on the 1 Tragodia and the 1 Gorz. Gore's, of course, staple in the format, absolutely obscene card. If you're used to playing around Nibiru in modern format, Gore's was kind of the same way. He could just swing the tide of a duel instantly. Tragodia is very good in this deck because it is a very heavy advantage deck where you almost always have 6 cards in hand, so taking a little bit of damage, then dropping a 3000 attack Tragodia that's going to be 36 next turn is very, very powerful. It essentially ends the battle phase, and not only that, it gives you a huge body. But Tragodia can actually do some really cool things like steal your opponent's cards. Like this thing can still like Drill Warrior if you pitch a Monarch, or it can steal other Monarchs by pitching a Monarch. There's some very cool things you can do with this, and then you can also adjust its level, which comes up in really niche situations. But yeah, these are just essentially more battle stoppers and are just plays on their own. And then we play a couple of weird like one-of staple-ish cards like the Sangan. I've seen some lists not play this. It doesn't make sense. This is essentially Substitoad. It's another copy of a frog, so I don't understand the reason not to play this card. Or it can grab Fader in the really weird situations, but you're always like playing Sangan in this deck. And then I play a Gale. Now this is something I wanted to play because not only is it an out for like, you know, really weird cards. So like Vanity's Fiend is something I've seen other Frog Monarch lists play, and this outs it. This outs Fossil Pachycephalo. I actually don't even know if that's in this format. I'm pretty sure it is. But this outs cards like that. It's an out to really weird Floodgate monsters that, you know, are normally very problematic for this deck. But it also gives you a tuner, which is very good for things like enemy controller, as well as giving you access to tuners in your own deck. There aren't actually many things you can go for inside of like with a Monarch. There's no like level 9 you're going into, but being able to econ their stuff is very good. Or brain control. It makes Gale turn into a power play, which I really like, as well as just being a very good standalone card. So I do play one Gale. It's not something you see in Frog Monarchs very often, and yeah, I kind of get that. But it's been testing very well for me, and I don't think I would actually take it out. It's been testing so well. On to spells, we're going to start with the 3 Soul Exchange. So ratios on Soul Exchange versus Econ have always been weird and format dependent. In this format, I'm maximizing Soul Exchange because of its synergy with Substitoad. I think it's absolutely crazy that you just like can Soul Exchange first, summon Substitoad, call priority, and clear that threat. Like just target their set Raikou, or you know, their set monster. You don't really know what it is. You know, it's probably a Snowman Eater or a Raikou, and then tributing it off for Substitoad, and then just going full combo with your Frog Engine puts you so far ahead in the game. It's just actually ridiculous. But Soul Exchange is a big swing over big boards, and it allows you to clear those huge boards. Being able to like, you know, tribute one of their monsters for Caius outs 2 threats on their field. It's a very, very powerful card, but you do give up your battle phase for it. But yeah, this card is the one I'm choosing to maximize currently, and I'm actually only on 2 enemy controllers. So this card is essentially brain control, except you don't pay 800 life points. Because if you tribute your Treeborn Frog in standby phase, it just still comes back out. So, you know, summon Treeborn, tribute for Econ, take their monster, Treeborn come back anyways. It's just brain control. And you can like, again with the Gale, you can Synchro Summon, you can tribute summon their monsters for Monarchs, or more importantly like Light and Darkness Dragon. What's really cool about this, again, is it has synergy with Soul Exchange. You can Soul Exchange one of their monsters, tribute that monster to take one of their monsters with enemy controller, and then tribute that monster for a Monarch and banish another one of their cards. Soul Exchange and enemy controller in combination can clear some pretty big boards. And yeah, this is a card that you're just always going to want to play at least 2 or 3 of. And again, I'm on 2 because I'm on 3 Soul Exchange, and of course Brain Control is legal this format. And if Brain Control is legal, it is essentially a Monarch card, so you want to be running this because it is so powerful. Essentially 3 Brain Control, 3 Soul Exchange. Next we have the MST, we have the Heavy Storm, and we have the Cold Wave. Obviously this card has been banned forever, but dropping Cold Wave and then summoning Light and Darkness Dragon is very often game. It's very powerful. But yeah, this deck does not like back row, and game 1 it's usually fine, it's manageable, but game 2 and 3 you side a lot more back row hate, because back row like floodgates and things really hurt this deck. But yeah, we're maining this in the form of our back row removal. And yeah, you sort of, you know, this is back when staples existed, so you want to play these staple cards. Then we have 2 Pot of Avarice. Now this is something when I was playing Frog Monarchs was just a big no-no. You would never run this card, essentially ever. But with Substitoad, this card is on a different level, because you can Substitoad through all of your frogs, activate Avarice to get like a free draw 2, and then still Substitoad through all of your frogs. And that is obscene. It turns Pot of Avarice literally into Pot of Greed, and that is crazy. In the grind game, of course, this card is amazing because you can shuffle back Monarchs. yeah, this card is obscene, and I like 2 just because of Substitute. If Substitute wasn't legal this format, I probably wouldn't play any of this card, but this card is almost never dead as long as you're able to Toad, and it's amazing in the grind game as well. In Quick Draw, this is a card I like to play 3 of, but I don't think Frog Monarch is the same deck. I'm not worried about milling my Pot of Avarices in this deck, so I'm just going to keep it at 2 rather than 3. In fact, I think there is reason to play 1 of it, but I've been liking 2. And then I'm on triple Upstart Goblin. Some of you are just, like, so happy to see this card because, you know, he's been at 1 forever. But 3 Upstart is actually, you know, an addition that we looked back at Edison with and decided to play. Upstart, of course, didn't get popular until a couple of years later. But Upstart in this deck, you don't often use as just like a, I need to draw a card. This is a card where I usually hold until, like, if I have the leisure to hold it, like if I have the luxury to hold on to this card and not use it, I will, because I like to use my Substitute effect, dump every frog out of my deck, and then activate Upstart because it is almost guaranteed to draw a good card. Or, you know, just the bare minimum, I'll normal summon Swap Frog first, dump Treeborn, then activate Upstart. But it's very, very good in this deck because you're not really playing a 37 card deck, because if you resolve Substitute, you're actually playing like a 27 card deck, which is obscene. Again, yeah, once you use Substitute's effect, you're drawing a good card almost every turn, and that is fantastic. So 3 Upstart Goblin is more than just Upstart in this deck, and I am going to maximize it. But at bare minimum, we are playing a 37 card deck. And that is the main deck. Of course, I'm going to show the extra deck next. I'm actually just going to put a picture of my side deck because I don't have all the cards for it currently. So if you want to see my side deck, I will show it on the screen here. So hopefully that is helpful. And then I will get into the extra deck, which you have a lot of leeway in Frog Monarchs because I only run Gale as a tuner. Like, what's the point of my extra deck? But you run a bunch of different cards that are good in different situations for cards like Enemy Controller. So we're going to start off with our level 5 tuner, or our level 5 synchro, Cataster. Gonna go through these staples pretty quick. Brionic, Goyo Garden, I miss when this card was like the best. Iron Chain, that's it for like level 5 and 6 synchros. These cards are so nostalgic to put down and be doing a deck profile on. Ancient Fairy Dragon and Black Rose Dragon, very powerful 7s. Then we have the Stardust. We're going to play 2 of it, and this is because back in the day you didn't have that many good extra deck monsters to actually put in, so double Stardust is pretty standard. The Red Dragon Archfiend, the Thought Ruler Archfiend, thank goodness we just got a reprint of this in Brothers of Legend because I needed it and I wasn't trying to spend that much money on one. And then we are playing Blackwing Armor Master because we are on Gale, so you can actually make this card, and Blackwing Armor Master, if you're not playing a mirror match, is just a complete house of a card. And then we are playing Drill Warrior. Now this has actually come up for me where my opponent has left Quick Draw Synchron on the field, and I'm able to Enemy Controller their Quick Draw Synchron, bring back Treeborn, and then make Drill Warrior, which is so funny. It's happened I think twice in testing. It's very cool. The rest of these extra deck cards, I don't actually have a Colossal Fighter, which you should be playing, but it's just like the rest of my Quick Draw extra deck, because again, if they leave Quick Draw Synchron on field very randomly, you can make these. This should be a Colossal Fighter, and then you can play whatever you want over these. Again, Frog Monarch extra deck spot or space is just absolutely free, so play what you feel is best. And that is it for the Frog Monarch deck profile. This was absolutely a blast to record because, again, this deck is like, you know, it's my soulmate deck, okay? Like, this is my deck of the past, and I absolutely love showing it off. I love playing with it. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. If you did, leave a like, subscribe. This has been Aaron from Top Tier Gaming. I don't know how much Edison content I'm going to record on this channel, but if you guys like it, you know, leave a like down below. And yeah, bye YouTube.